Can I invite all the presenters back on stage, please? All right. Get yourself comfortable, please. I'm gonna stand so you guys have comfort. Otherwise, we're gonna be squeezed in. That's not fun for anybody. Okay. So we have a bunch of really smart individuals on stage, coming from different backgrounds, different industries, different approaches. We have about 20 minutes, so I think we're probably going to get to 2 or 3 questions, right? We'll try to get to the most important questions, at least if I look at the series of questions that we have. So I think the first one that I think is the most important is, what's the biggest opportunity right now that we see in attribution? Where can it make the biggest impact, right? Is it optimization? Is it strategic? Is it tactical? Is it operational? There are specific elements in each one that it lends itself extremely well to. So just figure out the best. We can go brand, and then we can go partner. So we'll start from you.
Sure.
Yep.
I think there's really 2 sides to the question, I think. I think there's a huge amount of opportunity in technological advances. I mean, some of what you heard in the last 20, 30 minutes here are really about how proliferation of technology and adoption of technology has allowed us to track a lot more things, ways to figure out how to get around these things like walled gardens, ways to measure things, ways to better understand your business. But I think one of the huge opportunities on the flip side of that is kind of what Lauren and I tried to tackle today, which is more about how do we sit down and make sure that from a higher level we're approaching these questions the right way. It's easy to get caught up in, okay, this is the silver bullet, this is the solution, it's going to answer all my questions. But really it boils down to having a level of trust in the team that's handling the data and really believing the story and understanding how marketing and attribution is working for your business.
Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. And I think we heard from the Safelite team very much. One of the things that really I struggle with, and it depends on what type of category and, are you an incumbent brand or a startup, but just this divide between brand and performance. They're just consumers in the center of this journey with taking a lot of different actions. And as technology advances, that continues to evolve and change behaviors. So what worked yesterday doesn't work tomorrow. So you have to be ready to have that mindset and then evolve as quickly. A lot of us touched on themes of rebuilding with our teams, and it took a long time. You can't necessarily be always doing that and being in the same jobs. So it's really just having a holistic view of the whole consumer journey and being able to understand and talk to that. And as some of the presenters shared, decisioning off that in a very effective and ongoing way.
Justine?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest impact will come with optimizations that we can make today. And then as we look towards the future, the biggest impact will come from the focus that an MTA solution gives us as an organization. It will allow us to be coordinated and organized towards 1 or 2 main goals versus very fragmented across many.
So for you, what are the 1 and 2 things that you see will be the most impactful, or have been the most impactful for you?
Me?
Yep.
So I think for us, being able to optimize towards an ROI, which is really representative of the incremental case volume that's generated by certain advertising activities, or towards an effectiveness, which is the same thing, but towards impressions versus spend. And that is such a difference for a brand that is selling offline versus a brand that's selling online. You can't use media signals as an offline brand to optimize towards because it just really doesn't represent your ultimate business goal.
Latif?
Well, for me, I think we've seen a lot of rapidity in how quickly we are getting attribution data and measures back. I think given that the multiple agencies that organizations typically deal with, just that data collection takes a while. So for me, how the biggest opportunity is streamlining that so that we can get real-time measures that we can implement while we are running a campaign.
How long, How long did it take you to get to that state?
How long?
How long did it take you to get to that state?
We haven't gotten to that stage. So for me, that's the opportunity. Or I think we are still. It takes us a couple of months to get the data together after we've run a campaign, and then feed it into the attribution modeling.
Al, what about you? Where do you see the biggest opportunities?
I think the biggest opportunity is I was ending up trusting, or that's how I ended up my presentation, is trusting the data. So we're like 89% away, and when we believe the results and we make decisions and make buys based off the results, we haven't fed it into our programmatic buying solutions yet, and I think that's the next step for us, where we feel comfortable enough to let things run them by themselves, and not worry that we're very influenced by storms. So a storm coming in won't completely throw everything off and start really lowering or increasing bids. So once we get there and have enough data, have enough of those seasonal impacts, have enough information, we can then feed it into it, and then it's even more hands off for us in the future.
So a question that I would love to understand thoughts across. So we have attribution is a very broad definition of a word, right? And a need for the industry. So you have market mix modeling, you have media mix modeling, you have attribution that sits within digital, sits within TV, whatever definition you would like to use, and many other facets. There's a necessity to have a lot of depth and breadth at the same time. Have we seen successes in any of your current relationships or any relationships where you've seen the ability to fuse strategic MMM, right, tactical digital, right, and any other operational construct so you can have a full, right, marketing understanding, evaluation of marketing? Laura?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't go into it in our presentation of how we're using all the models, but that's exactly what the outcome was, and just exact precision on how we're using MMM, MTA, TV attribution, last touch, working with our CRM across the broader organization. And there's a very specific flow of when and how we're looking at information to make decisions with that cyclical planning, strategy planning into execution that's always on. So I feel like we've solved that for today. I would say, though, I mean, it's always about being able to predict and spend that next dollar or plan that next cycle. But we as marketers today handle some pretty big questions. It's not just about you have the same pot of money. What would you do with it for next year? A lot of the things that we're hit with from a planning and strategy standpoint are new products, new segments, going into the vast unknown. And so, a lot of our, I'd say the easiest part of our job is the rinse and repeat of understanding what works on a daily basis. But I would say we are thrown with a lot of tough questions. And being brave, we talked about that. What would you do if we cut your budget in half or doubled your budget? What if we're getting into new segments or new opportunities? And how do we shift and pivot between things we perhaps don't have a history or haven't tracked in our models? So there's a lot that we have to be really sophisticated to answer the unknown, in addition to for just planning the day-to-day.
Justine, what about you? Have you been able to connect those elements?
Yeah, so we use both a marketing mix and an MTA, obviously. And I think using the two together really allows our team to have strong focus. I think the MMM allows us to have an annual focus with big overarching themes. And the MTA really enables us to make those on-the-fly optimizations. And those optimizations are always data-driven towards a broader overarching goal. I think we would love to see a future where there's an MMM that comes faster. I think I talked about this a little bit. We can't wait a year or 6 months to see those results. We have such a short purchase cycle that we really need to see them as soon as possible. So that's kind of how we're using the two today.
Latif?
I agree. I think the breadth of measures that we're getting really helps us solve major strategic business decisions. And absolutely, the quicker that we can get that attribution, the results back, the more meaningful our decision making can be.
Alan, are you using all three?
So we've done MMM. We have not made it part of a regular analysis. And again, obviously we do MTA, but we have used MMM in some of our less formal modeling processes to understand the incrementality that I kind of got into. So MTA tells us kind of the channel distribution and the efficiencies we're getting by these different investments, and we use the results from our previous MMM and other less formal analysis to understand. All right, so we got 100 these jobs, we only get credit against these 40, right? Against what the MMM previously said we influence. So we use that percentage to then help us identify what the ROI actually is the investment. It's not that $20 it's CPA, it's more like a $50 CPA, and that's what we report out on to our leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that for many of our clients, there is obviously the need and the requirement of having insights from MMM and MTA, but honestly, that are integrated and they are consistent. So I think that you want your MTA insights to be in line with what you are reading, even if you're only getting on a quarterly or a monthly basis or an annual basis. So yeah, I think that many of our clients do have needs for MMM and MTA, but they want to make sure that the insights are aligned.
So I have a question for the brands that are doing television. Who's actually doing TV attribution? Success, right? What I mean success is, are you getting the same level of depth that you have seen in digital?
I don't think we're quite there for Chobani. We're not quite there yet. We're not seeing that same level of depth. But we also go back to kind of what we're selling here. We're selling yogurt. It's something that everyone's aware of. And I don't know if we need that level of depth. But in digital, it's fantastic because we are able to see that. That's a space where we can really make optimizations.
Lauren? Success?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo those comments. I mean, we've built TV attribution within our MTA model, so we feel like we have a unified approach. But I started my career in TV planning and buying, and I think, again, you're not looking, it's also being careful about looking for your attribution models to make every single decision for you, which is not necessarily what we're looking for. There can be some inconsistencies, but I think we're fairly confident and happy, and a big change was having TV attribution not living on its own, but feeding MTA for us. So
we talked about getting a really good understanding or great understanding of what's working versus not. And then we said, we've now get to a point where we're actually using it, right, for optimizations and activations, right? Why are we in a position today to be able to do that? Right? What's changed? Is it the people that we have on board? Is it the mentality? Is it the removing of silos that has allowed us to go a lot more seamlessly, at least the way I've seen it, a lot more seamlessly from understanding to actually doing something, right? Anybody, go ahead.
I can tell you. I mean, so we see this across at Reynolds as well as across a very wide cross section of our clients. What's changed really is the client. So there is a lot more appreciation for how this data can be used to make real impact on business. So that's what's changed. I think the technology that we're talking about and the interfaces and everything that supports mix and attribution has been there for many years. But now attribution, optimization, and being able to predict ahead is actually a source of competitive advantage. So when it becomes a source of competitive advantage, the client wants to act on it.
Lauren?
I can jump in. I think, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, I think a lot of it is the technology, and JP kind of spoke to it with, adding the pixel on there to understand across different devices, what does that person look like? A lot of those things that were a little bit slow to catch up in the whole attribution, atmosphere. So that's been a huge thing that's allowed us to really trust results and be able to activate on it. But the other piece of it is really, and this is just from my personal experience coming to the agency side and sitting down and working with people who really are digital experts and realizing the lack of understanding of how to interpret things. You know, a lot of them just taking reports and taking, you know, even with real-time data feeds right into their data stack and looking at it and making decisions. And, you know, the rest of my team is sitting there wondering how they got to that conclusion. So I think a lot of that communication has also improved over the last few years and has really made it so that we can actually make an impact and take those models and make activation decisions on that.
Brian?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to agree. I mean, I think it is a mentality change. So as Justine talked about a lot, it's about taking ownership of the data and the insights and really driving the action forward because, yeah, like Jim mentioned at the opening, the technologies existed for several years. The first few Attribution Accelerator conferences were about that technology, but now we're really starting to see the action coming in based on.
So one last question, and then we'll open up for questions. So we're ending 2018, 2019. What would be the one big thing that you want to see improved in attribution? Start from here, go around.
I mean, I think that your point on what has changed, I think marketers are starting to understand more and more the concept of incrementality and how, you know, media is actually changing consumer behavior and how attribution has to focus on measuring incrementality. And I think that's what I would like to see, just, you know, more people thinking about how you can actually compare the results of an attribution vendor with what you could actually see from lift analysis that you can get from your vendors. Because the truth is that the attribution should be really focused on measuring the incremental contributions of media so you can optimize and improve your marketing. So that's what I would like to see.
No?
I think, so here's what's coming, right, or it's already part of it. All these systems that we're using and all the media partners that we're working with, they're building their own attribution numbers and solutions. And the problem is they're all different. And they all conflict with each other, and they conflict with what I'm seeing in my numbers and in other verified numbers. I don't know what I'm asking for, but I think that's going to add a confusion back to what we're seeing here. So I'd almost ask, it's almost a dream, it's not an ask, right? I'd almost ask for companies and those media partners to take it slower and not just throw a couple data scientists at it. And when they do come out with these solutions, it's vetted longer, and maybe work with more established partners as they build these things. Laura?
Just to build on that, we absolutely need an open ecosystem,
Right.
and our whole presentation was about that we had to take control of all of our attribution and modeling and build it together from the ground up holistically. That's how we got to our source of truth. So my one wish, and I won't just beat on the walled garden partners because it's in every channel where one individual partner channel thinks they're going to come to you and tell you a story that's believable. The only way to see a believable story of attribution is if you have the whole stack and all of your data together at one time. And you know that's what the journey that we were on. And my own wish would be to make sure, you know, with GDPR and everything happening, you know, there are concerns that we're going to get less open currently, but it's a huge problem that we have channels that we can't really measure properly due to lack of transparency. So I would hope that the entire industry would come together and for the better of the industry and provide that access instead of creating individual silos.
Alex?
I would just echo what Alan and Lauren said. I mean, it's really with the partners that are not willing to share data for certain reasons, and it's just like Alan said, this is a dream. You know, it's not really something that's reality. It's never going to happen. But I guess if I could dream, it would just be complete transparency and ownership of our data on the client side, rather than it being this I own this, I can't share with this with you for X, Y, and Z reason.
Justine?
Yeah, I think similarly, open access to all sorts of data sets would be ideal. I think overall it would help us just make better decisions and be smarter with our investments.
Yeah, and I think going back to the walled garden piece, like obviously certainly breaking down some of those silos is important, but also leveraging the rich data behind those walled gardens. So what we're doing with Facebook on kind of improvements to identity management for the industry as a whole, right? And really focusing on that and working with the other big walled gardens and again, making strides forward for the industry, not specific to any specific vendor or product.
Yeah, so my personal hypothesis for 2019 is this, right? So our clients don't want measurement. Our clients don't want data and stacks. There's a ground reality of what exists and how it's going to evolve. Our role really as a client partner is to make sure that their business grows, which means that we have to help them move away from just thinking measurement to really insights and actionability. They should be able to ask any question of their data. They should be able to not only plug in into the data that they are gathering, but also that exists out there. So no matter what the data is, no matter the amount of noise, the lack of the silos, if we can give them answers on what if X happens, what should I do, then I think this particular capability becomes much more powerful. So the role of this capability in 2019, as per me, really is about growing our clients' business rather than giving them a measurement stack.
So I think for 2019 or even beyond, for me, the role still, in my mind, is speed on how quickly we can incorporate the measures that we are getting into our decision making.
Yeah, I would say for me, agree with that. For me, I would say two big things are to understand full value, right, over time. So short, mid, and long, right? Extremely important. I can't value everything and fundamentally understand that things pay off in dividends over time. And then true understanding of the ecosystem, how things work together, which will impact how the valuation of time happens, right? So I think a lot of that will give us a lot better understanding of how we value things, right? Like a television, right? All the definition of like a radio. So Jim, we have time for one question? One question. One excellent question. So not a hard thing to do.
I think there's someone.
Where is it?
Someone way back
Am I
there.
not seeing? All right. Can you yell? There you go.
Hi, can you elaborate on how attribution models are providing perspectives on audiences? So the individuals and the segments that warrant more or less investment.
Who wants to tackle that?
I can tackle that one because we're doing a lot with audiences. So we actually use a DMP MTA solution with Nielsen. So we use our DMP to build all of the audience segments that we're targeting. And we build just a ton that cover the gamut. And then we deploy them in market and measure them through the MTA. And what we're really able to do is within a 6-week time frame is we can start to allocate more money to the audience segments that are either delivering a higher ROI or driving more cases through the register. And I think what we've really started to do is say, hey, we don't need a very traditional segmentation study. We can use on-the-fly segments to help drive our business. So that's really how we're using it. It's sounds more complicated, but it's actually very simple, and it's drove the most value for us. We've really seen that pay off in bringing dollars back into our business.
So I'll build on that a little bit. So if you add a retail context to that, so in addition to sort of gathering ad impression data as well as sort of conversion data into a DMP, what we're helping some of our clients do is really bring in retail data, right? So recency, frequency, value measures, bring in loyalty program data, and really sort of expand the capability of that DMP. And for every single audience, so you're not only creating audience segments based on your hypotheses, but you're looking at what natural audience segments are evolving. You're also looking at external signals. What is it that people are talking about, especially on social and digital channels? Based on that, you're prioritizing the value of these audiences and then determining what sort of creative to show, what's the frequency, what's the kind of the type of reach that particular segment has. So it's this is the most fundamental step you have to do, but there's a lot that attribution can do in terms of bringing in more signals and then driving actionability out of it.
All right, thank you. Round of applause for everyone, please. Thank you very much. Guys, thank you very much.